Tree maintenance instructions, section 1, removal of equipment from service. 28, engine and machinia, waste X, lubricating oil filter element, remove 4 nut to the eye bolt to the top of the filter of the body, remove the cap, remove the filter element to replace the element, reverse procedure. Oil tank tube oil. After oil has been drained from the oil tank, remove all the piping connected to the tank, remove the left rear door. Remove the cap with the screws and legs at the bottom of the tank. Remove the 4 core cap screws holding the lube oil tank to the panel. Move the tank to the outer side of the hood. Turn the tank and remove the small door opening to replace the lube oil tank. Reserve procedures. Lube oil cooler. Disconnect the shutter arm assembly. Remove the grill and a shutter assembly. Remove the bolts of the holding the front section. Disconnecting the pipe to the oil cooler. Removing the 8 bolts holding the lube oil cooler to the frame structure. Cooling the unit can be taken from the locomotive to reassemble. The reverse procedure. Air cleaners. Remove the wing nuts on the both side of the air cleaner. Oil sump will not drop down in the surface according to the TM551046, TM551046-1. Replace the air cleaner sump is in reverse procedure. So, new oil sump and then put the wing nuts both on both sides of the air cleaner sump. Dirt collectors, remove the bulb and empty sediments, replace the bulb. Lube oil filters, remove 4 bolts with the retaining of the lugs, unscrew the wing nuts on the top of the filter body, replace the element to reassemble. The reverse procedure. Heater, remove the exhaust pipe, removing the metal screw and at the top of the heater, disconnect the water pipes at the fuel lines, remove the 1/4 inch screw at the base. This will allow the unit to be removed from the locomotive to replace the unit, and the reverse is this procedure. So, So fix the base, reattach the water lines and to the exhaust pipe and the metal screwing at the top of the heater. Water heater tank, remove number 3 door left of the hand side of the locomotive. Drain the tank, disconnect the fuel line, remove the 4 cap screws at the bottom of the legs. Tank can now be removed from the locomotive. To replace the tank, use the reverse procedure. Mufflers. Remove the cap screws in the inlet and outlet flanges. Remove the cap screws in the support of the strap. Slide the muffler into unit and forward and turn to the remove either on the left hand of the side of the number 1 or 2 door to replace on the reverse procedure. Blower assembly. The blower removes the 10 caps of the screws panel right to the side of the cab. Loosen 4 cap screws in the blower base. Loosen adjusting screw. Remove the blow drive belt. Remove the 4 cap screws in the blow base. Loosen the cap screws in the bellow bands. Remove the 3 sheet metal screw handling bellow bands to the blower on number 1 end of the turner blower. Remove the throw through the panel of each side panel on number 2 end. Turn the blower 90 degrees. Lift off the governor and remove through the side panel. The motor connection bellows. Remove the band to hold the bellows on the traction motor. Remove the 10 cap screws holding the bellows to the truck center bolsters to replace the bellows reverse procedure. To replace the bellows reverse procedure. Foundation brakes, brake shoes, loosen the connection rod, turning buckle, remove the brake head key. Brake shoe is now free to drop toward the rail. To replace it, use the reverse procedure. Brake cylinders, remove the pen and the air cylinder push rod. Disconnect air supply in the rear of the cylinder. Remove the 4 cap screwing holding the air cylinder to the truck. Slide the air cylinder toward the bumper. Remove the air cylinder at each side of the bolster. To place the air cylinder. Reverse the procedures. Handbrake staff. Remove the bolt of the handbrake staff and chain connection to remove the handbrake head of the removing of the cap screws, removing the hand staff through the cab. And handbrake. Remove the 4 cap screws, retaining the handbrake head to the cap of the lift handbrake hand, heading off the handbrake shaft to replace the reverse procedure. 31. The compressor assembly. Remove the compressor door at the side of the cab. Remove the 4 bolts retaining the compressor door at the angle support. Disconnect the drain line. Disconnect the delivery governor air lines. Loosen the 4 nuts holding the compressor to the adjusting base. Push the compressor inward. Remove the belts. Remove the 4 cap screws holding the compressor at the sub base. Slide the compressor out through the opening of the side of the locomotive to replace the reverse procedure. So, slide the compressor in, put the caps on, put on the belts, push the compressor forward, loosen the 4 nuts holding the compressor, and tighten the compressor to the base. Refill the drain line and bolt the compressor and attach the bolt to the compressor door, and then put the side door on the cab. The 32, the drawing coupler, removing the yoke of the pin and the coupler chain, and remove the coupler pin. Coupler may now be moved to the locomotive to replace the reverse procedure. Draft gear yoke, remove 6 double yoke nuts holding the draft gear. Retainer and drafting the gear now be able to remove from the locomotive to replace the reverse procedure. 33, the journal bearings, moving the waist of the journal boxes placed under the journal backs jacking pipe, raise the backs of the actuating jack and the unit clearance and sufficient to remove the brass. To replace the brasses, use the reverse procedures. 44, electrical equipment, disconnect all wiring, piping, gauge lines, engineering generator. You remove all hood doors and remove the lubricating oil filter, lubricating oil supply. Disconnect the removing shutter rods. Remove the heater and heater fuel tank. Disconnect all supply line to the horn. Remove the brake cleaners. Remove the exhaust pipe holding the cab holder. Remove the cap of the screws of the holding the U-bolt exhaust clamp to the cap of the cab from the front sheet. Remove the wind sheet from the enclosed main generator. Remove the hood top. Disconnect the radiator piping. Remove the radiator from the section. Remove the cap screws retaining the engine from the support of the generator. Support slide generator and toward the bumper under the clearance of the cab front sheet and the engineer generator until it can now be removed from the locomotive to replace this reverse procedure. So adding a new generator, sliding the generator through the bumper until it meets the front of the sheet, and then putting the screw caps back on that help support the engine and the generator, reattaching the radiator and filling it up, removing the hood to the top, and putting the hood back on the wind sheets, examining and closing the main, replacing the wind sheets with the enclosing main generator, putting the cap of the screws in the U-bolt holding the exhaust clamp, U-bolting the exhaust clamp, removing the reconnecting the exhaust pipe, retreating the cleaners, connecting the air supply to connect the air to supply to the horn, disconnect the restart. Put in the heater the fuel tank, disconnect them and move the shutter rod, move the lubrication oil filter, lubricating oil supply, disconnect all the wire, piping gauges, and engines, unit generator, remove all the hand doors. Traction motors, disconnect all air sanding lines of the traction motor leads between the truck and the mainframe. Disconnect the handbrake of the number 2 truck. Disconnect the speed operating cable. Remove the 4 cable screws, each at the top of the stop of the casting, 2 per truck. De-wheel the locomotive. Remove the traction bellows. Remove the plates on over the traction motor spring and the retaining ends, and lift the traction motor. And by lifting up the back of the traction motor housing, remove the motor suspension spring hangers. Remove the four traction motor gear housing cap screws, retainers. Traction motor gear housing can now be removed. Remove the 8 bolts holding the traction motor axle gearing, tying up the lifting lugs with lifting device. Raise the straight up, and traction motor can now be removed from the truck properly to replace the reverse procedure. Tie the traction motor is then replaced properly. The front lugs are lifting the device, and the 8 bolts are holding the traction motor. The traction motor gear housing is replaced, and the remove forward of the traction gear housing cap screws or retainers are screwed in. Remove the install the motor suppression spring hangers. Lift the traction motor and lift lugs back. On the back of the traction motor housing, remove the replace the plates of the traction motor spring retaining ends. Replace the traction traction bellows. Remove re-wheel the vehicle. Remove the 4 cap screws replace the 4 cap screws at each top of the truck. Stop casting the 2 per truck. Disconnect the handle. Connect the handle brake to the number 2 and speed cable. And connect all air and sand lines. Traction motor leads between the mains and the mains and the traction main and the frame. Radiator. Disconnect the shutter of the contact lever. Dismantle the radiator grill shutter assembly, removing the 18 cap screws. Disconnect the pipes, oil, and cooler. Remove the cap or retaining oil cooler. Remove the oil cooler. Remove the oil cooler support angle at the bottom. We're at auxiliary. Auxiliary generator. Loosen the auxiliary generator base, adjusting the screw. Remove the belt and remove the wiring at the terminal box. Remove the 4 bolts holding the generator, adjusting base. Lift the auxiliary generator up and through the floor hatch through the 2 main generators to replace the reverse procedure. Lifting the auxiliary, auxiliary generator between the two main generators. Tighten the bolts holding the generator to the adjusting base. Install the wiring at the terminal box. Install a belt and tighten the auxiliary base adjusting screws. Batteries. Disconnect all cables open the center door at each side of the cab to remove the retaining bars. Insert the battery lifter. Lift the batteries and slide out the cab to reverse this order. Lift the batteries in the side of the cab. Insert the battery lifter and tighten the install the retaining bars and close the center door on each side of the cab and connect all cables. Disconnect radiator. Disconnect shutter and liquid control valve. Dismantle radiator grill shutter assembly by removing 18 cap screws. Disconnecting the pipe of the oil cooler. Remove the cap screwing retainer oil cooler. Remove the oil cooler supporting angle bottom of the radiator until to remove the core. The moving of the four caps per the core to replace the use of the reverse procedure. Install the four cap screws per the core. Install the core and at the bottom of the radiator replace the oil cooling support angle. Remove the cap screws. Install the cap screws retaining the oil cooler. Connect the pipes to the oil cooler. Tighten the 18 cap screws and the shutter radiator grill. Dismantle assembly. And unconnect the shutter control lever. Radiator shutters control lever. Remove the 18 cap screws retaining the grill shutter assembly to reverse the order. Install the 18 screws in the retaining grill, the shutter assembly, and install the shutter control lever. Traction and lubrication. The traction gear, the generator is equipped with a single bearing communicator. They ensure the continued satisfaction of operation being properly lubricated. All dirt, foreign matters excluded. The contact of the bearings, the lubricants used in grease and leading the bearing chamber and around the bearing by the two labyrinth seals on one of each of the side of the bearings. The bearing is provided overflowing the excess grease over the lubrication of these bearings as well as under the lubrication. The refer to the lube order 551279 figure 5. The lubrication instruction. The grease leakage overflow is noticed at the period longer than recommended between the greasing should be allowed. Thoroughly cleaning the fittings, adding grease so not as the force through the bearing of the grease. The auxiliary generator. The generator is equipped with the two bearings which held the position on the shaft of the housing inner bearing caps. Lubrication will be similar to discussed in paragraph 37. Traction motor. The armature bearings. The armature bearing housings are arranged in the grease lubrication through the arming fittings, lubricating the bearings where the grease are indicated in figure 5. Thoroughly cleaning the fittings are adding to the grease and so not force the dirt into the bearing with the grease. The length of the time between the grease and the correction of the amount of the grease of proper bearing depending upon the severity of the service and number of the hours of operation and grease leakage was noticed. A period of longer than the specified figure 5 should be allowed. Greasing the bearings may be as harmful as under greasing is to be avoided. The over greasing of the indicated the leakage of excessive grease through the labyrinth seals where in the gets the oil to the brushes, commutator windings, examining the labyrinth seals regularly and grease with the having forced out either decrease the amount of the grease between the added length of the time between the greasings. A careful check of the condition bearings when the equipment is dismantled for the repair and for routine inspections. Whether the greasing schedule has been satisfactory, they should be changed in the future. Axle bearings, the description of the back bearings of the sleeve of the type of the range of the oil waste lubrication and shows the section through the axle bearing in order to obtain the safe satisfactory result of these bearings. Important the suitable grease waste, good oil pack, the waste of the bearing of the proper manner. The packing of the bearing, the proper packing of the bearing is of the utmost importance. The proper packaging and responsible for the large percentage of the hot bearings. Use of the long fiber wasted previously saturated in oil at the least of 24 hours drained on the screen gate rate of the several hours of the oil used as specified figure 5. The drawing is open from the well to the bearing of the capillary attraction to the stranded waste, therefore essential for the proper lubrication to provide the continuous path of the oil flow. The means of long stranded wool waste must be used in the waste must be actual contact with the journal. The first step of the packing of the bearing is preparing the wicks for the bunch of the oil waste. It means the paces of packing of the skein forms of the sufficient length to reach from the bottom of the waste chamber up to the 6 inches above the seat from the waste chamber cover. Twist the skeins from about the one complete turn into the order to hold the strands of the yarn in place to produce a spring wick. Pack as many skins as possible of the waste chamber, starting at the inner end of the bearing and working outward into the importing bearing window. Be completely covered with skein at almost upper ends of the skein to hang over the overseat. This is lubrication order 551279. Lubrication order is in lubrication of the bearing, plain bearings, air cleaner, fuel injection, pump check of lube or filter, crankcase breather, crankcase fill, the main generator bearing, the master control, the reverse drum, the handbrakes, the windshield wiper, the air compressor, the hinges of the door, the hinges and that latches, the shutters and linkages. The interval lubrication bell ringer fulcrum pin applied to the bushings, and how the hour meter traction motor, the crankcase level, the crankcase steering, the traction motor axle bearings, the traction motor blower, and the auxiliary generator bearings, the traction motor gears, and radiator center plates, and brake rigging and internal boxes. This is a key. Lubrication of the OE single heavy duty. It depends on the weather. 30 degree below zero. You have the OE, which is oil engine is at 30 to 30, and at 32 above degrees 0, and 0 to 30 is at 0 degrees at plus 32. Below 0 degrees, the OE engine oil should be 10. The lubrication order of is L through light is all above 32 degrees, below 30 Fahrenheit, and 32 degrees 0 Fahrenheit, and below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The OC oil lubrication car and locomotive angle is also at all expected temperatures and intervals. The lubricating oil general purposes are at 365 for all expected temperatures. 306.5 is in lubrications. The lubrication steam cylinder compound. The OSC3 is in all expected temperatures. The bearing ball rolling bearing lubricant is on all expected temperatures. The grease automotive artillery. These are all expected temperatures. The grease graphites, all expected temperatures. Lubrication chain exposed to the gear wire wraps or chain wire ropes at the HC and H at above 32 degrees. HA at 32 degrees 0 Fahrenheit, below 0 CW minor TA. You have daily, weekly, 2 weeks, and monthly, 2 months, quarterly, and semi-annually, and annually lube orders. Here you see a bearing and an oil opening, the oil pocket, and the normal oil level of the long fiber wool wasting, packing the oil bearings. Of the cover, about 6 inches is enough to hold the place after the wick is formed. A chamber pressing the horizontally tight against the axle beams of the suitable packing iron, holding the place in the force holding the iron in place of the necessary additional packing held into it. Folding the loose upper hands of the skeins of the waist and tamper the down light tight. Place a pad of the saturated waste large enough that the remainder of the waste chamber on the top of the wick catches the whole dirt with a mighty fall in the bearing of the hosing covering its opening. After the bearing has been properly picked and filled with the oil with the proper level height of the oil, pour the oil in the oil pocket on the top of the waste. If too much oil is poured into the well, overflow with the waste of oil. The height of the oil measures is the bottom from the chamber. Using the flexible gauge should be allowed the maximum of 375 thousandths of an inch, minimum 1 inch, and 125 thousandths of an inch. Inspection of oil periods, bearings of the type, good condition, properly packed and lingering fiber tool wasting supplied with a good grade of oil should run to the 1,000 to 1,100 miles between the oiling periods, and advice that each will operators should work on the actual service of the suitable oil schedule to fit the operating conditions of the equipment, such as the schedule may be determined in largely system inspection of the other equipment, the traction unit, the inspection bearings, carefully to wipe out oil dirt of the oil box lid before it is open, repacking the periods, repacking the bearings, and having been serious of 50,000 miles, 50,000 miles, it's a maximum, or at least once a year, replacing the bearings, removing all the waste, discarding from that which is glazed and charred, refilling the bearings with a good clean waste, which will have been made sufficient new waste to allow for any of the old waste discarded or destroyed about and once every 3 months to tease up the waste in the bearings to make it more efficient. The precautions: use a long fiber wood waste, long fiber wool waste. Keep this waste teased up. Use the waste for the has been well saturated cleaning up. You want using cleaner of the high quality, correct and grade. Keep the oil waste in closed cans. Pour oil in the well. See that the oil boxes lids are closed. Do not flood the bearings with the oil. Gear lubrication to the teeth of the gear. Piston pinion should never applied dry, but should be well covered with lubricant. 40. The main journals. Packing the main journals as frequently as a service condition may be required. Is a good grade of the wool waste sacked on the oil specified in Figure 5. At least 24 hours drained for about 6 hours. Keeping the temperature of the oil room for the room of the waste is drained at about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Packing the roll of the drain waste and marking on A the figure tightly halfway around the journal at the back of the end of the bottom of the box is shown, in placing the packaging mark of the P and the moderate pressure against the journal, but sufficient to may be good to make a good cause. Applying the waste somewhat looser at the side of the box, preventing the wiping effect. The packaging should not exceed the higher than the current center of the journal. After packing is completed, pour the free oil of the waste along the sides of the box near the center of the place towards semi-dry waste of the Figure 7 between the end of the journal front end of the box is shown, the purpose to which to serve the direct collector can easily be renewed as required. The 41, the air compressor referred to the TM552034 in Figure 5 of the lubrication instructions. The air brakes referred to the technical manual 552029 figure for the lubrication instructions. Diesel engine referred to the PM551046 Figure 5 for the lubrication instructions. Miscellaneous equipment cover the complete lubrication instruction of all requirements or all equipment not included in the above paragraphs. Section 3, general maintenance. Electrical equipment. Maximum service can be obtained by the electrical machinery only when they're kept dry and clean. This is especially tuned for the copper dust, brake shoe dust, and other metallic matter that may collect in about the apparatus. Blow out the apparatus periodically using a dry compressed air. Wipe off the hose and wipe off the part of the accessible, cleaning the wiping rags. Washing the wiping rags, preferable to cotton waste, as they are less liable to leave when the using air cleaning the vicinity exposed to the mica insulation. Do not use high pressure or small flakes when the mica is blown off. Finally, result in completing destruction of the insulation. Very destructive. If the oil is very destructive in insulating the material and collecting the dust and dirt and causing the breakdown of the electricity, when the electric lubrication apparatus takes extreme care of preventing the lubrication getting the insulated parts, and that it does get thoroughly wiped off of the cleaning wipe rags, cap of screw bolts and nuts with a secure the electrical cleaning and tightly ensure the goods of the contact with making ground contact thoroughly clean of this, which some contacts is made of all dirt, paint, rust, and ensure the good electrical contact. The paint all cables exposed to the dirt and moisture, especially the creepage, is important electrical installation, varnishing, control, warming the military specifications. MIL V137A. The varnish and high insulating qualities given to the smooth surface and easily clean. 46. Control equipment. Check the control equipment periodically. Loose nuts, screws, cotter pins missing, or not split or broken and wearing springs. 4. Contact pressures on the interlocking relay contacts, greased and dirt insulating materials worn and burned contactors, loose and terminals, connections, and broken insulators. When the painting control equipment is using insulating varnish as specified in paragraph 45D. Running the gear auxiliary, inspect the truck's other parts of the running gear equipment is frequently in service condition made, requiring loosening missing bolts and nuts and worn wearing plates and worn braking bearings, defective gears and gear cases broken, etc. 48. The water cooling system before the filling of the system before the sure the drain valves of the drain cocks are closed. Use only the clean soft water the free as possible from the minerals scale from forming minerals. It is impossible to obtain soft water. If it is impossible to obtain soft water, treat the available water with some commercial water softener. Replace the water supply required to make up the loss of liquids evaporation. The cooling separation system is and open all the drain valves. Shut off the valves whether they occur in the water piping. Wherever they occur in the water piping. Make sure that all parts of the system, include the engine block and any water-colored auxiliaries, are drained. Refer to the TM5510446 instructions draining engine. Draining the coolings periodically to remove the dirt sediment accumulates to be the end of the days of running with all material in suspension with the drain liquid. The Section 4, preventing maintenance services, inspection daily reports of the locomotive order repair to the DA Form 55226, serves as only the means indicating the proper function of the equipment. These reports will be thorough and are required for every man regularly operating the unit. The report will cover the special features noticed such as air leaks, tight brakes, improper functioning all of the meters, gauges, unusual engine noises, exhaust leaks, exhaust appearance, oil leaks, lubricated add, and any of the engine oil, water temperatures, maximum speed, average lubrication, oil pressure, idling fuel, speed, trailing, load, engine cycle temperatures. As pyrometers are installed, these reports evaluate each of the item followed by the maintainer of the trouble remedy immediately. The normal variations in engine water, their temperature, quantity, and oil used in the engine noises, exhaust pipes, overheated exhaust, excess current flash over the accessory will be investigated once. Successful operation of internal combustion engine compartments depend on the degree extent upon the immediate correction of little troubles. It does overall expense of the maintenance will be low. The inspections worksheets for the use of the connection, inspection, maintenance of the Department of the Army diesel locomotive prepared for on the appropriate of the DA Form DD Form 862, 863, and 864. The following outline procedure step of the following daily, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually inspection of the locomotive. They are using progressive program of the preventive maintenance accomplished. Correcting any of the defects observed during the operation of the inspection period when the period of making the correction of the time. 50 sequence test of the control equipment. In order to test the correct function of each of the switch contact with the relay to determine the operation of each of the proper sequence within other units, refer to Figure 44. This proceeds as follows. Preliminary: install the main contacts of the G switch with the end dead. Close the battery switch. Change the air system and see that the air furnishes the pneumatic apparatus. Place the reverse handle off the controller into the off and throttle of the handle off. That was preliminary. Starting the circuit sequence check. Close the control circuit breaker. Push the engine start button. Nothing happens. Move the reverse lever to the engine only. Push the number 1 start button. G1 B. The BP opens, BS closes, and G closes. Release number 1 start button. G1 opens, BS opens, G opens, and 13P closes. Repeat the 4, 5, and using number 2 start button, the G2 in place of the G1. Remove the reverser from the forward to the reverse. Push the start button on each of the position, noting that nothing happens. Push the relay to the P1, close the release, open the handling of the coils of the BP, close. Open the battery switch of the relay, the BP1 opens, the BP closes. Repeat of the 8, 9 using the BP2 instead of the BP1. Other sequence reference remains the same. Caution: in some of the tests following the required push relay to close and doing the touch knot apparatus hands using the piece of wood and other insulation material. Move the reverse to the forward and move the reverse handle to the forward and move the throttle handle to the number 1 notch. Reverse throw the forward. P1, 2P, P1, 2, 3, 4, and BF1 and BF2 close. The throttle operator does not operate. Move the throttle handle to the number 2 notch. The TH3 and the TH23 operate. Move the handle to the number 3 notch. TH1 and TH21 operate. TH3 and TH23 return to the normal. BF1 opens. Move the handle to the notch 4. The TH1 and the TH21 and the TH3 and TH23 return. So these build on top of each other at each notch. Except for the number TH3 and move the handle to notch 4, TH1 to 21, TH3 to 23 operates. Move the handle to notch 5, TH2 to 22, T1 13, T23 operate, TH1 21 return to the normal, BF2 opens. Move the handle to notch 6, TH1 and TH21, TH2 and TH22 operate, TH3 and 223 return to the normal. Remove the handle to the number 7 notch. All throttle operator valves operate. The close of the T1 by hand of the M1, 2, M3, and M4 closed. They release the T1, M1, M2, M3, 4 open. Repeat and open using the T2 instead of the T1. Return the throttle to off, and all position controls open. The throttle operator returns in the idle position. Repeat 1 and 11. Reverse the handle. The reverse note of the reverse throws the reverse. Other sequences should be in the same. Note the standard which operates the standard valve corresponds with the reverse position. If possible to change, check the stop of the buttons operating the engine shutdown. Check the multiple unit featuring the running of the valve. The test the locomotive controlled another. Checking the remote engine stopping the circuits operating as is described. Multiple unit operation is not possible by sure wiring to the receptacles is checked by the using bell ringer. The 51 testing motor rotation. Every time the traction motor leaves the power terminals, reverse the disconnect test and motors for the correct rotation which when reconnected. That is the traction motor lead power terminals to the reverser is detected. To the reverser detected in the motor's concurrent rotation when reconnected. The test is very important. It is possible for the locomotive apparently to operate currently each of the direction which have incorrectly connected, which may eventually produce serious or costly to the motor trouble. For example, the field armature lead of the motor, the interchange of the motor would operate correctly if the locomotive was moved in one direction, but the opposite direction of the motor field would be cut out by the action of the reverser. If this condition would continue in the service sometimes before being found, it would probably be result in a roasted out motor. So eventually you have the traction motor that leads the power to the terminal and to the reverse is disconnected. The test of the motors the correct rotation when reconnected. If you don't change the connection, you'll have a possibility of roasting out the motor. To make this test operate the locomotive with the least possible number of the motors, this means the opening circuits, cutout switches, shutting down the power plant. Even if the locomotive can be operated, only one of the motor tests is very simple. Running the locomotive on the forward direction of the short distant reverse, it operated in the reverse direction. If the locomotive operates approximately in the same both directions, the connections are correct. Repeat all the motors on the locomotive, operating them at one at a time. If possible, operate one motor at a time. Following the procedure, it will be followed. Oil the track of which the locomotive is operating, spreading oil on both the rails, operating the locomotive on as few motors as possible. Go on the section of the track of the forward reverse direction. Each of the motors operating has slipped in the wheels in both directions. Repeat the same test on the other motors until all motors have been slipped with their wheels in both directions. The following combination of one of the most likely and encountered in making this test: the motor and motor operators locomotive is in the direction indicate the reverse lever. This indicates the correct connections. The motor and motors operating the locomotive in opposite direction indicate the reverse lever. This is caused by the reversal leads. The reversal of the motor of the hung opposite side of the axle. For the assumed figure 44, the reverse leads interchange of the correct. The reverse and ladder interchange of the motor field. The leads of the motor head of the connectors and repeats the test. One of the motor tending to driving the axle a direction, another type of driving the opposite direction. If the reverser wiring agrees with figure 44, interchange of the fields the leads of the proper motor of the locomotive will operate according to the reverse handle opposition. And a motor may operate the locomotive currently with one direction slowly, not to the at all in the opposite direction. This is usually caused by the interchanging armature field, and such error will be given to the correct operation. In one direction will be cut the field and circuit entirely opposite direction if the two motors are tested at one time. The motor may act as a brake, trying to keep the axle from turning. Checking the figure 44, correct the proper place. At the proper place. If the correcting above the trouble checks the locomotive diagram, correct the circuit at the proper point. This will avoid the feature of the confused locomotive wiring and not agreeing for the diagram. The installation test in the new equipment, the main generator armature circuit, including the cumulative field and the traction motor circuits of the apparatus connected thereto and assembled on the new equipment, should withstand an installation of 180 volts alternating current of the period of 60 seconds to the ground. All control auxiliary generator circuits connected to thereto, except for the meters and storage battery on the new equipment, should withstand 800 volts alternating current at 60 seconds of the ground. Old equipment will have been in service and not considered necessary or advisable. Apply to the same installation on the test new equipment for the following testing. Commonly used main circuits 800 to 1000 volts of AC, the 60 seconds of the control circuit, 50 volts of the AC, 60 seconds on the locomotion equipped with the ground relays. The ground relay cutout breaker before applying the installation test of the main circuit. The installation resistance of the locomotives are placed in the service and installation insulation resistant of the power circuit to generate a traction motor should be placed in at least 1 mega ohm moisture conducting particles having acted the insulation resistant before the locomotive is placed before the circuit should be thoroughly dried out with the running of light load at low engine speed rechecked for the insulation resistance. Moving on to Section 5, Troubleshooting. A general study of the manual actually of the equipment to enable the operator to diagnose care of the minor causes of the trouble. Some troubles can be corrected by the operator. Some have obviously have to be remedied by the maintainers. In general, the equipment should be operated by the conditions which result in serious damage to the parts and correct all trouble properly to the obtaining of the longest life of all parts. And purpose of the proper the function of each part of the equipment is learned. It will assist to the quick location of the remedy of the trouble. 54. The generator fails to crank the engine. Instructions starting the engine that have been observed the engine that fails to start. The trouble may be due to the following: low voltage, battery voltage indicates the battery failure to starting the contactors to close. The failure of the starting motor bringing the engine to the firing speed. Check the battery change charges examined by the corroded terminals. B. The failure of the contactors to close. If the fuses are good, battery is charged. Check the open circuits in the control wiring. Also check the contacts pushing the button. Starting switches closing. Starting switch is closed, but the engine does not start. Open the circuit and the wiring. Inspect the switches and the contact and the fuses. 55. Falling off of the power. Decreasing the engine power should be manifesting to the operator failure to obtain the usual speed of the given load of the given part of the run or by the character of the engine noise of the meter and indication. The falling off of the power may be due to the engine conditions. The possible remedies refer to the TM 55104.6, TM 55104.61. Loss of power indicated overspeeding the engine may due to the lower loss of power indicating the overspeeding of the engine may due to the failure to the feed the contractors operated properly. Contactors operate properly. Checking the open circuits of the wiring, pour dirty and corroded contacts of switches. Checking the broken loosing wires and the resistor, checking the closing of the battery charging contactors, checking the wire fingers and terminal boards and controls and throttle devices, etc. Checking the line switches to ensure that they close properly. Good contacts. Failure to line switches closed due to the poor fingering, interlocking contact of the reverse controller of the failure to the failure of reversal to throw the correction position. Throw in the correct position. Complete the failure to electrical power. No voltage main regenerated. In this case may due to the failure of the field switches to cause the burned out resistors. Main auxiliary generator field. The circuits open circuits elsewhere. Field circuits. Failure to reverse by throw or the pneumatic type is the throw. Reverse by handle. Open the control wires. Check the fingers on the controller. Interlocking fingers on the reverser control the wiring connections. Faulty contactor operation may due to the wild air gap in the magnet switches preventing the free movement of the good contacts. 58. The miscellaneous troubles. If the engine runs over the full speed of the load and the locomotive does not make it a useful speed, the trouble may be due to the dragging brake, the air brake not fully released, head windings, hot truck of the journal plate, bearings, traction motor, axle, armature bearings. Do not operate inadequate supply of the lubricating oil, insufficient cooling waters, watching the excessive temperature for bearings, low oil pressure, diluted lubricating oil, insufficient cooling water, clogged cooling system, abnormal loads. Any of these conditions cause serious damage to the equipment. The failure of battery charge. The failure of battery charge, including the battery armature, may be due to the blown charge of the fuse, improper voltage operation, burned out auxiliary generator field, the resistor opening circuits for wiring, improper reverse current relay operation. 60. The compressor fails to pump air. If the compressor does not operate properly, check as follows. Check the angle of the drain cocks, pipe, air hoses, magnet valves, safety valves, and other points of the leakage. Check for the faulty compressor drive. This compressor valve operation can cause the failure of the main pressure excessive operation of the compressor overheating. The refer to the TM 52034 for the maintenance instruction. Common causes of the faulty operation. Some of the most common causes of the faulty operation: switch and control motors of the auxiliary and main apparatus. The interlocking controlling fingers improperly contact of the interlocks control fingers caused by the dirty gumming contact surfaces due to the heavy oil and the burning oxidization. Improper adjustment of contactors too wide away and air gap. The contact of the opening and the resulting unnecessarily high closing the voltage, binding of the bearings and loosening shunts and loosening the springs. Low control pressure, the leaky valves and remotely operated devices. Motors bearing the troubles due to the improper lubrication of the excessive wear. Brush holders loose of the broken assembly to close to the accumulator. Brushes greatly worn the binding improper. The graded loose the connections. Broken springs and shafted leads. D. General excessive vibration caused the breakage and loose connections. All terminal fuses, etc. and blown fuses.